Okay. Hi, Jane. Okay. Well, tonight is a special meeting. It's our regular meeting, but we're going to take care of a few items of business and then have some introductions. Tonight, we're honored to have the bike path committee for the Grosse Ile Township here with us tonight. We're going to talk about roads and bike paths and making our roads as safe as can be for not only vehicles but for pedestrians and cyclists. And bless you. So we're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
I'm going to call the roll. Riley is excused this evening. Phil Kennedy? Here. Les Schmidtke?
Present.
Ron Wilder is excused this evening. Jim Nelson?
Present.
Jim Budney?
Here.
Ted Van Oz is our ex officio member. Ted will not be here tonight. And myself, the chairman, Bill Kostick. So we have a quorum. And what I'd like to propose is we have items 4 through 8 are our normal business. Could we, unless somebody has a question on one of these, could we just take them all and approve them in one motion? Anybody have an objection to that?
I had one question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That was all for those breaks. Okay.
I did notice that was an unusually high number for our water main breaks.
Yeah, but that's where they tore out the humps.
Right. So, if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve items 4 through 8 on our agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve items 4 through 8 on our agenda.
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and supported that items 4 through 8 on the agenda be approved, which are the minutes of our past meeting, approval of vouchers, review of our revenues and expenditures, and the treasurer's report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion is carried. So next we have, we're going to have an open discussion about our road plan with the bicycle and the bike path committee. And what I propose for that is that we're going to do some introductions first, and then we'll make our proposal to you about roads, what we're going to do, give you a little bit of background briefly, and then we'll turn it over to you to respond and introduce yourselves. Okay? So let's just start with introductions. You see all of our names up here, so that's simple enough, and we have a list of all of you. But Lorinda is our Public Services Director for the island, and many of you probably know Lorinda. Jim Budney is not only a member here, but he's a trustee, just as Wally Posiaski is liaison to your commission. Jim Nelson is a member of the commission. I'm a member, Bill Kostick, and been chairman a few years. Phil Kennedy is a member, as well as Les Schmidtke. So welcome to all of you. And Brian, why don't you start, introduce yourself. And Bob? Jane? Glad to have you here. Aaron? Okay. And Wally? Wally Posiask, trustee, member of the committee. So we're glad that you're here. What we're going to talk about tonight is this plan. And you all have it, or you all had a chance to look at it. We're going to talk about the road portion of it. So let me just highlight it with a few things. We've been working on this for at least 4 years. We've driven the roads year after year and looked at them deteriorate. We know we have road problems, and we know they're not safe for many cases for vehicles, and they're not safe for bicyclists or pedestrians, given the condition. We have met with Wayne County numerous times. And we put this program together last fall, gave it to Wayne County, asked them to review it, and they basically came back and said that they were unable to provide any funding. Originally, this program for roads, which is now $9,800,000, was about $12 million. And there are 3 roads on the island that are eligible for federal grant assistance. 80% money. One is Meridian, Grosse Hill Parkway, and East River Road. The story goes that Meridian, since 2013, was number 74th on the county's needs list. 74th. They do about 15 miles a year resurfacing. So that would mean, well, we'll move up in about 4 years, maybe 5. Last year, in 2014, we were 72nd. This year, 2015, we're 84th. So what they do is they look at all the roads, develop their top 200 miles of roads out of 2,000 some miles that are their top needs, and they rate them based on traffic volumes, accidents, condition of the road surface. And we were essentially told, you'll probably never qualify in Grosse Hill based on the competition with roads like Ford Road and Canton Township and Fort Street, Telegraph Road, many other roads throughout the county. In Canton Township, Plymouth Township, Northfield Township, Livonia, you can see the size communities we're up against. So that's why we've developed this program. If we want to fix our roads, and they are a mess, we'll have to do it ourselves. That's our conclusion. So we also, in this program, you'll notice there's about $9 million worth of water main. Huge sections along East River and West River that are not complete, and where we have 6-inch pipe. There's a picture in this. I don't know if you saw the pipe that's with 60 years of buildup of calcium on the inside or other minerals. Some of them have been reduced to half in size. Well, we want to complete the loop of 12-inch pipe all the way around the island for reliable water service and for fire protection. That's part of our plan. So taken together, it's an $18 million proposal. So with that background, what I'd like to do then is just go through the roads quickly, tell you what we're talking about. And you're not looking at a map at this point. You all have a copy of the plan. If you go to the page 3, which looks like this, maps on the television. Page 3, they're numbered at the upper right hand. Now, of our plan, in fact, page 4 is really a map. But if you look at the map just quickly, you'll see with this plan, every primary and secondary road on the island would be given some kind of treatment. So we think that impacts everybody. Now, these are major roads. These are all called collector roads. You'll see the treatment is that the ones on the map shown in green are resurfacing. That means we're going to go in, and you've seen machines mill off the surface of the road, the asphalt. They come back and lay 3-4 inches of asphalt back on top of it. That's resurfacing. It does not mean any widening. It's resurfacing. The red is something called chip seal. They go in and they spray a hot mixture of asphalt material over the road and follow it up immediately with a spreader, a big truck and spreader of little stone. And the stone gets rolled into the top. And it's called a double chip seal. Now, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do our first couple miles of chip seal on the island. Now, we've gone to Monroe County and looked at their process and studied it. Lenawee County, been to Midland County, been to Auburn Hills and looked at it. It turns out that almost every county in Michigan does chip seal except Wayne County. Now, it took us over a year to get permission from Wayne County to do this on a pilot basis. We're going to try it. Now, the communities like Monroe, and we drove several of their roads, they make their roads last a long time by doing this. And should do it and this plan calls for doing them, if this is approved, in 2016 and again in 2019, 4 years apart. So this could really extend the life of our roads, and the smooth aspect of it is we do some base repairs, which we've already done a few out in front here on Grow and South Point. I think the commissioners would tell you that that was pretty effective. So we spend about $20,000 a mile to do the base repairs. This work costs about $40,000 a mile versus $500,000 a mile to resurface. So it's a real cost-effective way, and we hope to do 12 to 15 miles twice during this plan. And then, I don't know if you know where Church Road is. It's yellow. It's coded yellow on this map. That's the one road that we feel we have to reconstruct. And we're going to propose to widen Church Road 2 to 4 feet. It's only 18 or 19 feet wide in most places. So from the canal on Church to East River, we propose to widen it approximately to 22 feet. At the same time, we'll improve all the intersections and the intersection sidewalk ramps and repair the sidewalks on Church Road at the same time, any of them that need to be repaired. Bob, you look inquisitive. All right, and then from the canal to Meridian, we're going to just resurface, because if we try to widen it, we're going to have to take the trees down. And we don't want to cut those huge, mature trees down. And it's, frankly, the ditches are not deep there, and that's all we're going to be able to get away with, unless we want to kill the trees, which they're valuable to the adjacent property owners, and it's a short stretch. So that's basically an outline of the plan. So let me just go through this page 3 again. So please keep in mind that Church Road is the one road that we're going to reconstruct. That means all the pavement's coming up, the base underneath it's going to get torn out, and we're going to replace the base, fix the drainage, and put a brand new road down. Fix all the intersections along it, and as I said, all the sidewalks and all the sidewalk ramps for pushing buggies or wheelchairs or whatever would conform to ADA standards. Okay? So that's the reconstruct. And we would, if this is approved this year, we would hope to start that project in 2016. Also in 2016, if we get approval, we would resurface Meridian Road from Grosse Hill Parkway to Horse Mill, 2.5 mile length. Now, I don't need to tell you, I drive it all the time, and it's in very bad shape. How many of you drive it? That section of Meridian. We all know how bad it is. Then we would chip seal at least 12 miles in 2016. So that's an ambitious program. We'd also do the water main in those areas that would be affected before we put the roads down. The next year, 2017, we would redo East River Road from Horse Mill to Ferry, and also a section from Grosse Hill Parkway to Manchester. So we're talking about 2.5 miles of East River Road. And I would tell you our goal there, and we'll talk about this too, our goal is to have that widened shoulder for pedestrians and bicyclists along East River. Right-of-way's there, Mr. Pollack, the right-of-way's there, and we're going to extend that pedestrian path. That's our goal there. We would also hope to do Ferry Road, and we once planned the chip seal ferry 2 years ago, and it deteriorated so bad we couldn't chip seal it because the cracks were too big. So then we were going to widen it a couple feet. It needs it. But when the county said they weren't going to be able to give us any money, we had to cut almost $3 million out of our plan. So Ferry Road is just a resurface now. A lot of people do use Ferry Road. And I live near there. I see it all the time. Then probably the third year or fourth year of the paving program, we would do that little section of Meridian that remains from Horse Mill to Bridge. And frankly, it's not in bad shape. We can maybe get by with some base repairs. We budgeted $250,000 for that. We'll have to decide what the appropriate treatment is at that time. Maybe some resurfacing, some chip seal, we'll have to see. And a big one, item project number 7, is West River Road. Now, the problem with West River Road, there's not much traffic on it. And if anybody's driven it, you know that it's a beautiful setting. The road's terrible, and there's a drainage problem there. The water doesn't flow well from the east side of the road to the west side towards the Trenton Channel. The road is not in the center line of the right-of-way. There's an easement problem. So the road was, it's an old road. It's been there a long time. It meanders. You normally you have the center line of the right-of-way, you build the road in the center line. So the center line of the road is the center line of the pavement. Well, it's not in the center line. So it meanders all over the place based on the contours, I suppose. So it's an expensive undertaking. It's 3 miles. What we hope to do there is mill it. We've lowered the budget. We once were talking about $800,000 a mile to resurface. In order to come up with a program under $10 million, we've cut this to $600,000 per mile. And it's very tight. There'd be no widening. There's just no money to do it. But the question is, if we don't address West River, and if we get approval, are we just going to leave it sit there like that? Now, I've often ridden my bike on it, and I know it's unsafe during the day. People can't walk or ride a bicycle at night because you can't see all the bumps. It's dark, so it's unsafe. So I will tell you this, that we were questioned last night by the township clerk, Eric Ranker, raised some good questions about this. And he said if there was any way we could find the money to put a shoulder like on East River, on West River, he'd like to see that done. I'm bringing it up because I think that based on my experience over the years with it, and what I've been told about many of the homeowners, I think that we need close to 70 easements in order to widen it all. 70. I've been led to believe that a good segment of those people, and Wally can speak of this later, have indicated over the years they will not grant any easements. They do not want it expanded in width. And so that could take a long time to go to court and try to condemn property, and there's no money. We don't have the money to do it. Unless we can come up with a grant to do it or something. But my own opinion as we sit here tonight is it would delay everything. That we should have talked about this a year ago. But we can always add it if we could get the money. And then you'd have a long, I think, difficult task. And I know in some communities they've run into an easement problem. They build what they can and then put a sign up and say, we couldn't get an easement here, so go back to the road and walk around this guy's property and then start again. Some communities have done that type of thing. But at any rate, I want to let you know now there are 2 trustees here tonight, Jim Budney and Wally, and I planned this today to say this to you guys. I was thinking Ted might be here too. If for some reason the township board in your discussions with other board members you feel that this is a very critical issue for your consideration, I'd be open to a special meeting between now and July if you think that's appropriate. And we can always amend the plan we came up with. We can always go for more money. And West River wasn't going to be built till 2019 anyway. It would give us time to try to do that. And if we couldn't secure it, we could always spend the money elsewhere. No problem. I don't know what what a path would cost for 3 miles. I'm going to guess it's well over $1 million. And I'm not talking about a 10-foot path, maybe just a 3 or 4 foot segment of it. But I will say this, and then I'm done. If we pave West River, it'll be safer for everybody that walks or rides a bike on it than it is today. There just isn't a lot of traffic. So that's our plan at this point. And so we now would like to turn it over to any questions while you had your hand up. Do you want to, anybody that speaks, do you want to go up to the podium? So you understand the nature of what we're doing?
Well, now we'll see if you learned anything.
The questions that I had about West River specifically, we've been down figuratively this road many times. Traffic counts, as I recall, when we did them 6, 7, 8 years ago, were under 400 cars a day, as compared to Church Road, which is 1,200, 1,400 cars a day.
No, Church Road is as high as 3,500.
Yeah.
Goodness.
And I think you're right on segments of West River. The further out you go towards Horse Mill from the bridge, the county bridge, it gets to that figure.
The
Peak
argument
was about 750 cars a day. That's a certain part of it.
The argument will be that nobody rides it because it's so bad.
Yes.
But I think you just hit the nail right square on the head, Bill. A repaved road painted in the same configuration as we have now is still a lot safer than what we have currently. As you know, I was chair of this commission for many years before changing directions, and had the privilege of working with several of you in the past and still am in the future, at least for the immediate future. So I have some history with it too. And I remember specifically the arguments about the paving of West River. And I will not give one single inch was a rallying cry for easements there. When we did the south end of West River, south of the Free Bridge, there was issues there. And some of those issues were dealt with by volunteers on the committee. John Delphi, Jack Delphi, did a lot of work chasing around, getting a lot of the footwork done to make sure that we had the easements for that stretch of road. But at that point, when we considered going north, they said that the difficulty in getting easements was going to be exponentially greater. So I like your idea. I think that, again, a paved surface there is much better than what we have now. As far as the rest of the plan, I think you've explained it enough times that even I can understand it. And don't giggle. We had to draw pictures. We had to draw pictures for you too. But the plan's a good one. It's a plan that's been coming together for not 4 years, but probably 14 years, after one fashion or another. Les could probably remember the time when we had enough money from county to pave West River, but could not do so. And the reason is because we had to do it to county specs, which meant easements, which we couldn't get. So the world's changed. Our benefactor is no longer there. We have to do it ourselves. I think this community deserves this effort. And I'll be cheering you on.
Thank you. Brent?
First, I'll echo what Wally was saying.
I think you have to speak right more closer to the mic.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you for the great presentation, and I think that we are on the same wavelength. As Wally was mentioning, at least personally, I feel that road preservation projects where you're issuing the pavement, that's 50 to 90% of the battle usually with bicycles and pedestrians. But before I provide any more comments, what I was hoping to do was provide you with a little presentation on what we do, so that way you kind of get an idea of where we're coming from, and then it's going to include some potential ideas for you to think about while you're working on potential projects.
Okay.
So a little history. Our commission is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. It grew out of the Bike Path Subcommittee that was, in 2011 and before, that was led by Trustee Eric Aranka. At that time, the subcommittee was specifically looking at bike paths. Our charge was that we have, money available for construction of new paths. Where do we need to spend it? A lot of the topics were looking at different corridors like Church Road, like East River, and other ones, and saying, well, basically we're looking at shoving a square peg into a round hole over here, and because a path is not going to be the solution in all cases. Sometimes you don't have the right of way. Sometimes that you don't have the actual money to actually do the path. So we considered it more of a handicapped approach. And then we were only looking at engineering solutions. So what we did was come up with the idea for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. And I like to say that it respects all 5 E's. So engineering is one aspect, but we're also looking at educating the masses to make folks safer for when they're walking and biking, as well as motorists safer, and let them know about sharing the road with bicyclists and pedestrians, potentially working with the law enforcement in the future if we still do have some safety concerns. But additionally, encouragement activities. So some of these slow rides and the safe routes stuff that we've been doing is working to try and get more people out there walking and biking because there's safety in numbers. And finally, there's evaluation. And one of the things that we've been working on was the PAC, the program. It's I don't remember what it's called at the moment. Promoting active communities. Apologize. So this is just a little flow chart here. We are BPAC. We report directly to the township board. We're an advisory commission. It's very similar to the way DPS works. But we also consider ourselves more of a one-stop shop to the public. So when the public has questions, anything related to bicycle and pedestrian travel, they can come to our commission, and we're going to try and figure out, is this something that we specifically tackle, or do we need to coordinate with the other commissions available? And an example over here talking about DPS, Open Space, and Recreation Commission. And then, of course, it can go back to the township board from there. So, when the previous township board enacted the BPAC, we were given specific duties. So, we're supposed to be advise the township on all bicycle pedestrian issues, look at routing, create a master plan, and then, again, evaluate and make recommendations for walking and biking facilities in general, not just paths. So it could be looking at the on-street as well as off-street facilities, as well as coordination with various agencies and anything else that the township would deem necessary. So some of the projects that we have been working on, we worked with the Island Roadrunners who graciously donated a fountain, and we were able to do a fundraiser project using bricks in order to raise the funds that were needed to actually install it. Erin did a great job coordinating that, as well as Lorinda had a great hand in this, and she makes sure that our fountain is safe during the winter for storage. We've also been doing the Walk to Bike School Day, and we had our first safety class recently, so that goes into the idea of education and encouragement, as well as we're getting ready to have our first lazy rides coming up, led by Jane. And we've also been working with the public.
Can you go back to that lazy ride?
Sure.
So this is going to occur. This is a good time to plug it.
Yep.
This is a good time to plug your lazy ride. So it's going to be 3 times this summer. And what does that mean exactly?
Jane, do you want to come up here and talk about the lazy ride? Yeah.
Okay, I have been going to Slow Roll in Detroit starting last summer, and I was inspired of thousands of bikers biking in Detroit, slow and lazy, and then we were talking about doing something more than just didn't talk about roads. Why don't we bring the community, like you said, bring more people to use the bike path and use the trail? And then I came up with a version of Lazy Ride as Slow Roll to Lazy Ride. And we're going to be meeting in downtown, 10 o'clock. Whoever shows up, follow me, and I'm just going to bike slowly. Oh, look at the birds, bike slowly. And also, I've been thinking, I wanted to be able to have the community to experience our roads. Oh, wow, bumpy. If you have a problem, speak up. So if you can get people to come over and experience our roads, and if you get enough people interested and more people are showing up, the more, we better do something and improve our roads. So I'm really excited. I hope you guys will meet me next week Saturday.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Thank you.
Very family-friendly event.
Good.
So we've been doing promotions about the existing paths that we have, as well as leveraging the other resources on the island. So, where are there restrooms? Where are there other fountains? And another thing, I'll move back to this, is as part of our outreach at the Island Fest, we had a booth, and we were asking folks that came by to mark where they start their rides or where they start their walks. Are they starting from their homes? Are they starting from trailheads? Are they coming from off island? As well as what routes are they using or they'd like to use, and trying to provide coordination with the open space, which has some of the soft trails, as well as leveraging our recreation resources. So we got a lot of great input from the public on which roads that they were looking at that needed some sort of additional facility. It could be just pavement, it could be a path, it could be anything in between. And we do have that information with us here tonight if we want to talk about that in more detail. I'm going to go back here. So the other thing that we're doing is we're moving into restoration projects like you're doing with the roads. So we're looking to repair our paths as well as repair the bridges. So we're looking to spend potentially about $110,000 in order to make sure that all of our paths are in tip-top shape. Basically looking at Meridian, the southern end of that specifically, as well as on the South Point area, and that's going to cost a considerable amount of money. Additionally, all three of our major bridges need significant repairs, and we're looking at about $40,000 for that. So we've recommended to the township board already to solicit bids for these to see are our estimates right on. But we are concerned that as we move forward, we're trying to do the right thing, make sure that we have we're taking care of our assets. But like the DPS Commission, we used to have a millage, and then unfortunately it sunsetted, and we don't have funds moving forward to make sure that our paths and our bridges stay in tip-top shape. So in the future, we're going to be looking to potentially do a millage, or at least find some sort of other resources to maintain these things. But that gets into different projects, and one of the things that's very unique is that Groseal is part of the Iron Bell Trail. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Iron Bell Trail. It used to be called the Governor's Showcase Trail. It's basically two trails starting in Ironwood in the Upper Peninsula, western part, and routing around the Upper Peninsula and the Lower Peninsula before meeting in Belle Isle. And one portion specifically comes through Groseal. So I am launching an interactive map right now, and you can see the route that was specifically chosen for the Groseal area. So this is part of the hiking route. Is the state is branding it. In southeast Michigan, we're considering this supposed to be both for walking and biking, but from a branding standpoint, they're considering it more pedestrian at the state level. But essentially using Groseal Parkway and potentially coming down West River, using the Grow Path, using the Meridian Path, coming through our business district, so that way people can spend money in our downtown, enjoy it, come by, use our overlook, be able to look off and see Stony Island, and then potentially come up to East River, and then use our horse mill path, be able to potentially use some of the soft trails within our open space and enjoy the bird sanctuary, and then come back down our path and be able to come off island. So this is just proposed at this point. But what's nice about this is it opens up newer funds for the township. So the Department of Natural Resources has the trust fund. Since this is considered a recreational route, we might be able to potentially use some funds from that pot. Additionally, there's the Transportation Alternatives Program. Both SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, as well as MDOT have funds available for that. Additionally, the DNR has mini grants that they've been putting out that hopefully you have to do less, jump through less hoops in order to get these funds, but we might be able to start planning specific, smaller sections of these corridors. So I just wanted to put that out there that this is a possibility. I'm not sure if it's right for Groseal, but it's a potential resource.
And of course, can I ask a question? With those programs, whether it's the Transportation Alternatives Program, I think the match on that's 20%, or maybe 30%.
Yeah, so the match should be with TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program. It's generally 20%. It can go up from there, but there's a lot of different moving parts within like what projects are selective. So things like if it's a regional pathway actually helps out. Whether or not you're going to be combining it with other road work in the area. So maybe you're redoing the road, you're doing the sewers at the same time. Well, that actually can help you out. There's aspects of geographic equity because there's $5 million to be spent in 7 counties, and some counties have been getting more projects than others. Some parts of those counties have been getting more parts. So there's a lot of fluid dynamics in like the actual selection process. But and the other thing I should say is that the TAP, the Transportation Alternatives Program, is federal funds. So that means that funds that come from the state can be used as match against the federal funds. So if you can get a fund, say the DNR grant, that you only need 10% for that. You get that money, then all that money can be used as match with the TAP funds as well.
Oh.
So last part I just wanted to explain, which I believe most of you already know, is that there's a variety of different facilities out there. We're not just talking about bike paths. So the most common known facilities when people think about biking facilities are the off-road facilities. So the independent trails like parts of the downriver linked greenways, the Clinton River trails up in Oakland County. They're generally historically rail trails and greenways. There's side paths along the roads, like our bike paths here on Groseal, and sidewalks. But there's also on-road bicycling facilities. So, Bill, as you're saying about paved shoulders, those work great for bicycling. In certain rural areas, those are working for pedestrian facilities as well. Frenchtown Township down in Monroe County, they don't have the money for bike paths across the region, but they're using paved shoulders on either side of the road in order to be both a walking and a biking facility. There's also the aspect of bike lanes. So if you can convince Wayne County to actually stripe it as a bike lane, that provides another level of scrutiny and lets folks know that bicyclists should be riding in this area, and gives them their dedicated space, generally 5 to 6 feet. And it promotes safe riding practices because you're supposed to be traveling with the direction of the motor vehicle traffic, so it cuts down on a lot of crashes. The last item, which is potentially even the most bang for your buck, is with shared lanes. Now, as you probably know, in all of Michigan, any road that doesn't specifically restrict bicycles is a shared lane. You're allowed to share the road with vehicles, but there's ways that you can promote the idea of sharing more so. So one of the aspects is something called a shared lane marking, or a SHARO for short. So this can be placed in the road, and it shows a bicyclist where they should be traveling within the roadway. Now, I know we don't have a lot of on-street parking on Groseal, but in this picture, it's showing that the marked lane is out in the middle of the lane, because farther in this picture, you can see that there's on-street parking. So if the driver of this car opened the door and the cyclist was traveling this way, they're likely to get hit. And if there was a car, motor vehicle traveling, then they can get hit a second time as they had fallen off their bike into the lane. So this promotes a safe bicycling travel, lets the bicyclists know where they should be riding, but also lets the motor vehicle know to be expecting bicyclists in here, so you cut down on some of that harassment. There's also the idea of neighborhood greenways or bicycle boulevards. So you're utilizing side streets within neighborhoods, and you're promoting the aspect of biking, and you could use shared lane markings in certain intersections, or again, it's probably not as needed in Groseal, but there is the idea that sometimes a road doesn't go through for motor vehicles, but it goes through for bicyclists and pedestrians. I'm just thinking of an example of that could be the Anderson Cut, where we have a great neighborhood greenway with thoroughfare connecting Church down to Meridian, but being able to access Meridian quicker by cutting through the two dead end streets. So, in summary, we've said this before, but we're very excited that you've asked us to come here and work with you on this, and we're looking for win-win situations. And again, first and foremost, we consider pavement restoration as a high priority. It's going to be good for bicyclists, it's going to be good for pedestrians, and we're here to help you.
Thank you. That's good. So why don't we, appreciate the presentation, why don't we open it up for questions from anybody here? From anybody like to speak? Aaron, you seem ready?
Thanks again for inviting us here. This is really exciting, and I think, as is, this is going to be a tremendous improvement. Obviously, things can be even better, which I assume is why you invited us here. But I guess I'm wondering how much input do you want from us? Because it sounds like some things are pretty set. Like, if I were to tell you the top 4 issues that people have based on what we heard at Island Fest, Church Road, which you're addressing that, I do still hear a lot of people want a sidewalk that connects from Thoroughfare to Meridian. And I know that that's a beautiful area with the trees. It reminds me of the tunnel of trees up north. I think it's beautiful, but there's been a lot of turnover on people who live there. Like, I have a friend who just moved there recently. The neighbors on either side of her are brand new. So I think on the north side in that small stretch, you might have a whole new set of people. So I don't know if that would be worth revisiting, or like I said, maybe in your plan, there's no room to look at that, because I know you're looking to do this pretty quickly too.
Well, I think that you raise a good issue. So to the commission here, we can note that. I mean, we made a recommendation to the township board. When we started there, and all our cost estimates were very conservative. In fact, we were using 5% interest rate. I follow the bond market for municipal bonds, and they're not selling at 5%. They're selling way below that. But we were trying to be conservative. So we've met with Miller Canfield, bond attorneys, and we've reduced it to 4% because we had to come up with this $3 million of county federal grant money we were counting on that we've lost. But, I wouldn't be opposed. I mean, I'm throwing this on the table. We're asking for $18,800,000. That doesn't mean we couldn't change that and make it $19,600,000 or something. We could put money in there to. I don't think our project necessarily, if we got good bids, would lock out extending a sidewalk. Now, my idea would be we go on. Let's just say we're going to. The sidewalk primarily, I think, is on the.
It's on the south
side of the road.
I heard historically it would have to go on the north side, though.
Well, we could look at that, but I wouldn't be opposed to coming in that direction and leave the tree line, but we'd have to go to each one of those residents and say that we want to put a 4-foot sidewalk. Now, that wouldn't be eligible for federal money at 4 foot, but you couldn't put it's my understanding, anything that's federally funded, it's got to be 10 foot. Well, that's not going to work because those yards are not that big.
Yeah, and you're talking about a sidewalk, not a bike path.
Sidewalk.
Correct.
Be
Just a
safer,
sidewalk.
and I agree.
Just a way to get from Meridian to the sidewalk that's there on Canal.
A lot of people would like to get to the church there, the Lutheran church, and to the Montessori school.
Okay.
And you can't cut down. You can, but it's.
But you got to come out on the road.
And then come back
Well, you still got to
north.
come out. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that's a great suggestion, and I don't think that our plan, since we contemplated, we're going to fix ditches, not enclose them all, but we're going to fix them, make them less dramatic, safer, more aesthetic, easier to maintain. I wouldn't be. How does this commission feel? I don't think we lock out a sidewalk in that stretch. If our bids come in good, does anybody oppose that? It'd be a good suggestion. So I'd like the minutes to reflect that we had a positive discussion about Aaron's idea.
And that's
This is
if
gonna
that's
be
what the
called
residents
Aaron
want too.
Something walkway. Well, not memorial, just walkway.
Aaron, are you talking about the people that it would affect?
Yes, the people that it would affect how
The
they
the
feel
houses?
about it. The homeowners, yes,
The
absolutely.
homeowners are in favor of it?
Most of them that I've talked to.
Really?
Okay.
Well, and I've built a lot
I don't
of.
know if you should go just by my word. I mean, I think you should go to each of them individually.
Well, we'd
'cause
have
I don't
to.
know everyone who lives
We'd
on
have to
Church,
get
but-
easements, but in my prior life, I was involved in municipal government, and we built a lot of walks, in particular in Farmington Hills, where they weren't there before, and people didn't want them. So we used to go in and actually build a little berm and landscape it to protect the front of the home from the walkway. Because everybody says, we want sidewalks, but not on my property. You heard that before.
Sure.
So I think that's a great idea, and it's needed.
I guess
Discount that.
The right of way on that road is on the north.
Well, maybe there's enough room there. I don't know, but
But
But doing
correct. But I think the really important thing here is that you know that we have the communication and we talk to the people, because we know in the past they just came in and took without any discussion, and that was some years ago, and it still is a sticking point with the whole neighborhood. So, yeah. So we need to talk to the people and do what they want.
my point is it's worth revisiting.
Yes.
But like you said,
Yes.
don't.
And there's
Without anybody's
absolutely
permission.
nothing wrong with doing that and speaking to the people and finding out how they feel.
And then I have just three more. Obviously, East River. And you talked about putting a wide shoulder. We haven't really discussed it with our commission, but I wonder if it would be better to do bike lanes, because we do teach to ride with the flow of traffic, walk against the flow of traffic. And with a wide shoulder, it can be a little bit confusing, especially for less experienced riders and walkers, because you're always on
yeah,
one
I need an
side.
education. There is on certain sections of that, at least for a mile, a widened shoulder.
But it's
that's
only
paved.
to one side, is that correct? Not on both sides?
You know, we're not going to have the money to do what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
But our goal was to get it on one side. Now, if marking it would help, I'd be in favor of that too.
Marking it would be better. Mhm.
And that's where a marked shared lane might be nice. Side of the road, you could have that not be, formally a bike lane, but you could be promoting folks to be riding with traffic on that side of the street, and the opposite side where you don't have a bike lane or a paved shoulder, you put that marked shared lane. So that way people know that to promote the proper way of traveling through that corridor.
Brian, that looking at your presentation, which was very good, by the way, that shared lane idea. I mean, that seems like a very inexpensive, nice way to go as a starter. Certainly as a starter, and I think it's appropriate for the island. Because of, as we say, we're not getting any money because why? Because we don't have the volume. So if we don't have the volume, we do have the ability to share the roads with bikes. So I'm really interested in looking into that.
You speak in the mic.
Oh.
Apologize for cutting you off, Aaron.
Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that it goes a long way if you put in these striping when you actually have fresh pavement on the road. So the life cycle of those stripes with the shared lane marking is going to be extended dramatically. So if we can time them, when you're actually doing the repaving, it would
Okay.
be great.
Well, we're going to make note of that, and I agree with you, because right after, even when we chip seal this summer, the center line and the white marks on the edge of pavement are important. So I agree with you. So, Aaron, continue. So far, you're 2 for 2.
Bellevue was one that a lot of people mentioned, just because I think especially in the summer you have a lot of kids riding to Water's Edge, and Water's Edge continues to do some great things, adding more attractions there. So you do get a lot of kids riding along Bellevue. At one point, I think that was one of the streets that was looked at for a bike path, but instead it was put in at Horsemill. Now, I don't believe, did you say that there would be no shoulder widening there? It would just be resurfaced? I don't remember what you said in particular about Bellevue.
Bellevue's not on there for resurfacing. Our original plan, it was. We're going to
Okay.
chip seal it,
Chip seal, yes.
and we will stripe after we chip seal. But the section I think you're talking about is between Meridian and
That one, and then also near
West River.
Centennial Farm, because I see a lot of people
All right, well,
walking and biking along
we know
that
we
road,
need to
too.
fix it. I mean, I wish there were money to widen it. We could consider striping it and with a bike path lane too. I guess we could consider that. Would that help? Well, it's going to be, our proposal is to chip seal it in place. I know, it's narrow. Okay, so Bellevue's on your list.
And then West River, like you mentioned, but it sounds like we don't have a lot of options there. And like you said, a clean road would be safer no matter what. So,
And that'll be true of Bellevue too, because there's got spots on Bellevue that are not in good shape, particularly from Meridian to East River by Centennial Farm.
so I guess those were the four that I heard mostly at Island Fest, and then from residents who continue to write in, because we do get periodic communications from residents for our meetings and things like that. Anyway, again, thank you for inviting us here, and this is really, really great.
Good, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? How about our commissioners? Bill?
I have a question, Brian. You spoke of sources of funding, and it seems you have many more sources of funding for your projects than we have for our roads. And I'm just wondering, is it possible, or could it be possible, that we could combine some of your sources of funding with our road project, maybe to find that several $100,000 to do something along West River, to create something better there than just widening the road or resurfacing the road in place? I mean, I don't know how that could possibly work, or even if it's feasible to look at.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely combine the money there, especially if it's local money. You made mention already that Wayne County wasn't giving us any money, so it's probably out of a moot point. But the idea is you can't match state funding with state money and Fed money with Fed money. But if you have local sources of funds, that can be used as the grants. And additionally, a lot of the winning projects, they are combining road projects with bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So if you're going in there and you're already redoing the road, you can share on the costs for the design work, and it might cost a fraction of the PED side would cost a fraction of that it would if it was a standalone project. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure.
I think what he said, Phil, was that, yeah, it's possible to combine the money. So take his grants or money that they would be, and I'll say bike path money, and combine it with the road and get the project done, the complete project done.
Oh, okay. So the bike path money.
I'm using bike path. It might be, it could be anything that you were talking about.
Are you talking about our local bike path funds? Because I know Wally's going to step up and say we don't have anything.
You listed several sources.
Yeah.
There's these grants, this grant, these funds available, these programs available. And my question is, could that generate funds that could be used in conjunction with the monies that we hope to raise through our bond proposal to enhance some of our roads?
Over and above your bond.
Yes,
Yeah.
over and above. In other words, Trustee Ranka or Clerk Ranka was talking about, well, let's find that $600,000 to enhance West River beyond just resurfacing it in its existing profile.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like if you.
But we still have the easement problem. I understand that.
Mm-hmm. So,
Can I just jump in for a second?
of course, sir, come on up
I
here.
don't want to come up.
Because you're on TV. I mean, we have to have it on.
Photogenic, Wally, we gotta have you on there.
I'm just here to help you, Wally.
See you later, buddy. The point that I'm hearing here is that Brian seems to have some resources that, because of the nature of what you do, you're not aware of, right? He's got some resources that are different. His employer is a major assister in these efforts. SEMCOG knows a lot of things and knows how to find a lot of things, including grant money. It seems to me that you got some marching orders, sir. That means to go out and come up with a list of potential grant sources and then share them with Bill's committee, and the two of you figure out if there is any sweet spot in there where we can in fact combine both of them. Does that make sense? Puts it down to two people sharing a half an hour over a
We'll
cup
do
of
the
coffee.
roads, you do the, the
Yeah.
Well,
non-roads.
it does make sense, but let me go beyond and ask a technical question of Brian then.
I'm done.
When you talk about the federal grants for trails, my experience is that if you got a grant through the TAP program, they don't fund sidewalks, correct?
TAP
Right.
can fund sidewalks. Again, it really depends on the mix of the projects that year.
Okay.
And then, how are those sidewalks being used? So I'll give an example that you might have a road and you're going to put in sidewalks, but you're also going to be putting in shared lane markings or a bike lane or a wide paved shoulder, something where you're providing access both for the pedestrian and for the bicyclist. That's a winning combination there. Sometimes you can get away with a project that is just sidewalks, but generally, again, it's going to be what you call it. So if you call it a path, if you call it a trail, then you're bumped up to that standard where you need that 10-foot width with the 2-foot shoulders, and so you're up to a 14-foot right away for your trail.
That's the point I was going to raise is the typical trails that this TAP program, which is non-motorized transportation, would grant money to, requires a 10-foot path with 2-foot shoulders on it. Old rails to trails where they took railroad right away and made rails to trails, or if we were to redo the trail on Meridian, it would have to be 10 foot of pavement with the 2-foot shoulders. I don't know if it's 10 foot now. Is it?
I think it's 8 foot.
8 foot, that's what I think. And that used to be the standard. But so you're saying there is a possibility of a mix where they might fund a 3 or 4 foot, I mean, forgetting the easement problem, let's assume we could get most of the easements. Assume we could. And if we can't, we just leave those off. I mean, if we wanted to build as much as we could on West River. You're saying that if we had the match, and we 600,000 was a figure that came out of the air, but I don't know what that shoulder widening would cost, but maybe that's a good figure for 3 miles. That'd be 200,000 a mile. I don't know. But at any rate, that there is a possibility that some one of these programs might have 80% grant funding for something like that?
It's a possibility. I think it's how you frame the argument and you show the connectivity. So if you can't secure those easements and you're not providing anything for the bicyclist or the pedestrian where you don't have those easements, I'm going to say that's probably a demerit. But again, depending on the mix of projects that year, it might be still competitive.
I think that in reality, we could probably get 60, 70% of the easements. I'm guessing. It depends on how we present it. But actually, our program, we programmed West River to be done the last year, which would be 2018 or 19. So if this were approved, we could always go out and pursue this. And let's say it were 600,000 and we had to come up with 200,000 to match the grant. Maybe we could find the money somewhere else if we could get the grant. So we're not, I guess the point is let's not presume that we're locking that out. Would have time if the voters approve our resurfacing. We have a couple of years we could strive to work together to go get it. I mean, I guess that's a better approach than, well, by golly. All right. So I guess a third
I
point
was
then.
thinking it.
I guess the third point would be,
Thinking that.
Aaron talked about Bellevue, and I'm sort of hopeless on Bellevue but if we could do West River, and from this meeting just agree that if we got approval, that we would have a couple years to work with you to see if we could put a plan together, and maybe invite the grantors to come here and look at our situation. We're certainly going to make improving the road. It's not really accessible to pedestrians right now. Improve the road, it's accessible. I think accessibility to the beauty of the Trenton Channel and the environment is something that might interest people, given the limitation of where we are. If we could get a 3 or 4 foot shoulder to market for pedestrians or bicyclists, maybe we'd get a grant. I don't know. But it'd be worth a try.
Definitely be worth a try. One other thing I did want to add in, since we're talking about specific corridors, Groseal Parkway, between the bridge and Meridian. I know that there's a couple different options. In the past, the Bike Path Committee that preceded us, we looked at potentially using the right-of-way behind the homes on Groseal Parkway. So I think there's calling like the Chicory to Hickory trail area, but basically you have subdivisions and there's some easement behind there, potentially put in a little bit of a boardwalk connecting the two, and you might be able to connect the Meridian path with Groseal Parkway, basically right, very close to the actual bridge.
The name of that street is Douglas.
Douglas, okay.
We've talked about that project over the years too, and I won't lock out any ideas, but in a sense I have in my mind. I think that's an important segment. In fact, when Horse Mill was done, we were still, this was before your commission, we were still responsible for trying to plan the maintenance and bike paths. And I long held the position, except for where the gully, the valley there, where it dips down.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, let's just offset and pave a separate shoulder off the shoulder for the bike path, even if it's if we got grants, it has to be 10 foot wide. That's a problem. But if we didn't do grants and say we wanted to put a 5 or 6 foot walk there, offset it from the shoulder, and come up with a couple $100,000, whatever it would cost, we could do that. And then when you get to that area where it drops off and you'd have a very expensive bridge to build and there's no money for it, I say at that spot, since it's just a couple 100 feet long, you come back to the shoulder of the road, and anybody on a bike or pedestrian could look and make sure they had a safe zone from traffic, get around that spot, and then you're back in a safe area. You understand what I'm saying? Rather than go out in the side streets and spend all that money going around it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think anybody's ever costed that out, but I think that's an important segment.
Yeah. Or even just staying on Groseal Parkway. We've got maybe a 1 or 2 foot shoulder on either side right now. If in the future you're able to put that up to add 2 or 3 feet on either side of the road, then you have a 5 foot bike lane on either side of the road, and you have that connection that can provide unidirectional traffic from the bridge to Meridian, to Meridian Pathway.
Everybody know what we're talking about there? Everybody agree it's important? Anyway, all right, well, that's another good suggestion. I think we all share that.
Do you have any suggestions specifically? Any corridors?
I got most of what you guys were talking about, daydreaming. But I'm thinking, what is our priority? What is important to us? We want people to come to the island and buy houses and patronize our restaurants and shops and stuff. I'm thinking, if I was an outsider coming to go there, where would I want to go? The perimeter of the island. So we've been talking about East and West River. Focus on that first before we do Shirts and Bellevue. Do the rivers first. So bring people so they can look and bike. So that's what I'm thinking, perimeter first.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments for our joint meeting? Wally?
On August 22nd of this year, there's quite a few events occurring on the island. And I'm going to mention it to you because I'd love to see DPS take a part in this. We have an event that Wayne State has promoted called the Barradour event. It's a 100-mile bicycle event. People are going to be riding 100 miles and ending in Groseal. As of right now, we have in excess of 100 people registered to come through Groseal. They're going to come down Groseal Parkway to Meridian, turn north on Meridian and go to Macomb, run Macomb all the way down to East River, make a left-hand turn, take it to Horse Mill, bring Horse Mill back to Meridian, and then come back off the island as fast as they can. These are racing bicyclists. These are the things that you see on television. It's a promotional event, and it's going to raise funds for scholarships at school. But the route puts a lot of people who are bicyclists interested in an opportunity to come to Groseal and watch them run. That same day, Tom Malvesto and I are going to have the second Walk the Path event, which celebrates our paths, our bike paths and our open space paths. This event puts a community presence at the corner of Meridian and Macomb and the gazebo. We have Barry Van Engelen playing guitar, Wally singing. That may be a detraction, but I do my best. We have a commitment from Recreation because of Tom Malvesto to support it through the Rec Department. We are planning on putting a presence of a BPAC there to talk about what we have going and what we have as BPAC. Open Spaces is going to be there to talk about the availability of walking paths around this community. And I think that these are good promotional events to talk about Groseal. And I think, and it's my opinion, that DPS should be there pitching this. All right?
That's a Saturday, August 22nd.
Saturday, August 22nd.
We will.
Have a booth.
We will do that.
Answer questions. We're going to be giving out lemonade and hot dogs that day. And Tom Malvesto is supporting it, but not going to be in the work section. He's going to be riding that 100-mile event on his bike.
Well, I'd like to ask the DPS commissioner. Are we all agreed we'd try to put a tent up and promote our program? I mean, I know I'll do it. Les?
Yeah. I'd love to have
I think it's a good idea.
Great suggestion.
Yeah.
And we could give away chunks of asphalt.
You can seriously.
Various roads.
We won't run out. We'll run out of hot dogs first. Oh, and of course,
I think it's a great
if
suggestion.
Rodney's there, we'll always have
It's a
one.
great
Can
opportunity
you
for us
save me
to
a hot
promote our
dog?
issue.
Can you save me a hot dog, Wally?
Yeah, I got one cooking
I'm
for you
going to
right
be
now.
in Alaska on that day.
Thank you, but I think that's something we
Thank you. I
we
think-
need to do is all commissions gang up on our populace and show them what we got.
By the way, one of my intentions is if the board does put this on the ballot, I'm going to come to every commission. I'm not coming to you guys. I've already been there. But I am going to go to all the other commissions, Planning Commission and the others, and I'm going to go to the policemen and the firemen. And
We're going to the
we need to go around and talk to
We're-
the school board and
any
all the
group
civic
that'll
groups.
have us.
And
And even those
we're
that
going to
won't.
talk this up. We're going to let people know what we're talking about. So, is there any other comments on this? I'd like to conclude our discussion with a takeaway here. So I'm going to make a list of takeaways, and one of them is going to be that we're going to look at Church Road, bringing a sidewalk from the canal to Meridian. Second, we're going to make sure on East River that we adequately mark a bike lane and get that shoulder paved, the entire distance that where we do paving. And incidentally, we're going to chip seal up by the middle school because that pavement's pretty good, and there already is a bike lane there, so we could paint that as well or mark that as well. So those are two items. Third, on West River, we would agree on our takeaway today that if the issue is approved, that we'll work with your commission over the first couple of years of our plan to see if we can get some kind of grant. And if so, maybe we could then go and try to get some of the easements and get some of it built, if not all. Okay? There's three things. Another one, Bellevue, we'll continue to look at, but I don't have a lot of hope for it. So those are some takeaways. Okay, we'll add Grosse Hill Parkway to it. That you feel it's important, and we'll work with you exploring alternatives there. And I don't know what could come of that, but what strikes me, and I don't want to affect our program, but township board could say, if they wanted to have a study session, or if you wanted to just do it, let's add a certain lump sum of dollars to look at some of these things. Certainly we could use another $1 million, but the question is what what's acceptable to the voters. Our plan is about cost of 2.5 mils. So the first year we would issue bonds in series. We'd probably issue about $12 or $14 million of the $18 million the first year. And that would mean that people would have an increase in tax rate of about $1.5 million to 2 mils. Then when we do the last $4 or $5 million, it would mean that they'd be at the 2.5 mils increase. That would probably occur about 2017 or 18, probably the spring of 2018. And that's the year after we would pave West River. Under the laws of the state and the federal laws issuing municipal bonds, if you issue a bond, you have 3 years to obligate the money. You just can't issue a bond like New York City used to do in the 50s and 60s, issue $800 million worth of bonds and get 7 or 8% interest off of it and use that money from the interest to run their city. And there was no public purpose other than to, I mean, that's called arbitrage. And so if we issue bonds, we have to have it obligated within 3 years. So our plan is we won't have it obligated in 3 years, it'll be 4 years. So anyway, those are little technical things we think about. So if there's nothing else on this, I think it was a very productive discussion. I want to thank you for being here. And let's continue on with our meeting, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting.
Really exciting.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on. Good discussion. Thank you. So you might want to hear some of the other things we're dealing with. Lorinda, you're going to give us an update on the PRV valve. The PRV is a pressure reducing valve, and it's located near the toll bridge. When the water comes over from Detroit in our 24-inch water main there, Les, or is it 16-inch water?
16
16.
at the north end.
It's under high pressure, and if the pressure were to come all the way into the island, we'd burst all our water mains. So we have a pressure reducing valve, which, Les, how big is the box, the pressure reducing valve? How big is it? About 10-foot square?
I think it's about 10 by 10 or 10 by 12.
The concrete
It's very
box
good
with the valves
size
in it,
box.
underground. We just replaced it, so Lorinda,
It's in and it's functioning. We're just waiting for DTE to put the meter in. So it's flowing through the 8-inch right now until we get the larger flow demands. It's set at about 57 pounds right now. Kennedy will come out probably in about a month, and they'll just tweak it a little bit. So, but it's operational.
that project cost us well over $280,000. Okay, the chip seal schedule update. I talked to the contractor today, and later this week he still hopes to deliver the stone chips to our DPW site. So what they're going to do is they're going to truck in truckloads of this, create a little hill of all the chips on site. And the segments of roads we're going to do is we're going to do South Point from the canal to Grow to Meridian, and then East River from Grow all the way to Manchester. Now, we've done the base repairs there. Horse Mill, its entire distance. Section of East River from Macomb to Ferry, past the junior high school, with the hope of preserving that pavement. So we're still on schedule for that to be done probably at the very end of next week or into the week after that, the week of the 20th. The contractor today he's up in Skoda, northern Michigan, and he says every other day it rains. So when it rains, they're out. They can't do it. So next is the Stout drainage problem.
Yeah, I wanted to give you an update on the project. CE Rains went out and they did a preliminary field survey on it, and they've done some sketches. They reviewed the existing ditch grades, and they noted that there were very few minor grade concerns. So right now they're evaluating 4 options, and they're still talking to the county. And so once those talks have been concluded, they'll be able to discuss these options and determine which one is best, for the drainage there. They'll prepare the sketches, and then they're going to give us a cost estimate, and hopefully I'll have it for the next meeting.
So what we'll have at the next meeting is a detailed cost estimate of various alternatives. I just want to say one thing. We have a drain fund, separate drain fund. I think we could be talking about a very expensive drain fix there. Have you all looked at it?
Yes.
You've all seen the driveways. These concrete drives have heaved 4 or 5 inches. Ditch is so shallow and the culvert's under them. So we're going to have to make some decisions about what the fix is. One thing I feel that talking with our engineers about it is we want to come up with the best solution, not just a half-baked solution like the county did years ago. But we could be talking some real dollars there. So we'll have that on our agenda with answers next week. And Lorinda, I would like to make sure we have that report not the day before our meeting, but the week before.
Okay.
People can look at it like Jim or I, or they're around, and ask questions.
As soon as I get it, I'll
I
forward
want to
it
make
to
sure
you.
it's a complete report, okay?
Okay, the last thing I have on the manager's report will be Wayne County is sponsoring another household hazardous waste collection. This time it's going to be on Saturday, June 20th at the Henry Ford Community College at 5101 Evergreen Road in Dearborn. This is posted on the township website. There's a list of items that are acceptable. They're also accepting electronics there as well. And this is open to Wayne County residents, and it's free.
Okay, so we'll go around. I don't know if there's no public here. I would invite anybody. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about that we didn't already talk about? All right. Come up to the mic, please.
Well, Bill, I see you, Bill.
I'll just say that we continue to get public comments from folks via email, via some of our meetings and such, where they do talk about sidewalks and about implementing gaps within the sidewalks on Park Lane, for example. But additionally about potentially maintenance of existing sidewalks. And I know that this is kind of low on the priority list, but I just wanted to bring it up that maybe potentially in the future we should be looking at how do we maintain the sidewalks so that way where we have trees heaving up pieces of sidewalk slab that we're going after that and making sure everything's good for our young children.
I think Lorinda can answer that.
We do have a sidewalk ordinance, and it does state that the adjacent property owner is responsible to maintain that sidewalk in good repair.
So, okay.
It does. So we haven't done a survey on the sidewalks in probably about 10 years.
Okay.
So I know they are. I watch.
Well, and you say it's low priority. Well, we haven't really talked about it. We have not, the sidewalk repair. And I don't know whether it's in your area of responsibility or ours. These are the types of issues we do need to talk about. And there is a liability rule on sidewalks called the 2-inch rule, where if one slab heaves over another by more than 2 inches, the municipality has an obligation to see that it's fixed, either requiring it to be fixed by the property owner or fixing it. So I know we've done some repairs with our money, Lorinda. I think I'm correct on this, on Macomb Street, where we've had, remember this, Lorinda, a couple years ago, we had some slabs that heaved, and we fixed them. And that came out of our money. All right. DDA money then. All right. Well, anyway, thank you for bringing it up. So the chairman has nothing else to comment on tonight. I want to thank everybody for being there last night at the Township Board meeting and for everybody participating. And with that, we'll go around. Les, anything?
Yeah. Where's Joe at tonight? He was supposed to come back with a report on that electric gizmo.
Joe's leaving for vacation. I suggested that because we had this joint discussion tonight, not knowing how long it would occur, that he come at the next meeting.
You let him sneak out.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Bill?
Nothing further.
Jim?
Nothing further.
Jim?
I've said enough.
I have too. Lorinda?
I'm good.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd
Make
like
a
to
motion that we adjourn the
Well,
meeting.
then I'll support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for coming in.